SmartLines package as presented on TradeStation on the Trading App Store. This is the package. You can also look at the individual indicators on the Trading App Store. You go to the App Store, search DVAN, you can find all of our products. I wanted to go over specifically the opening of today. Today's February 9th. I'm looking at the chart on Eastern Time, so 9:30 is the opening. We're looking at the S&P E-mini. This is a 3-minute chart, which we find very applicable to intraday trading to catch some of the good swings, but stay out of some of the smaller, choppier moves that a 1-minute trader would experience. So looking at a 3-minute chart, I wanted to kind of go over some of the moves this morning, how our system would identify those moves, entry and exit points, and tell you a little bit about DVAN SmartLines. So immediately after the open, you can see a transition from a selling cycle to a buying cycle. So as you can see, this is the entire day going into the close in about another hour. The red shading obviously is the selling cycles, green shading is the buying cycles. So on top of that, what we look for is a price breakout of that cycle, as you see here at 9:36. Green oscillator in the short-term trend indicator, which is the middle indicator here. Green oscillator shows that we're identifying the short-term trend as up. Red means short-term trend is down. We would also want to see the leading line in that short-term trend indicator above 0, really signaling that the force is not only in a positive trend, but we're experiencing, the forceful part of that move. So no consolidation, but actual ready to lift off and move in that direction. The last indicator in the DVAN SmartLines package is the DVAN long term. This is very good for position management, for managing your expectations for a bigger bullish or bearish move. So in this case, we actually are getting across of the long-term trend as well, but this is something that's going to help us manage our expectations for trades, and I'll show some examples of that as well. So we meet all of our criteria at 9:36. Price is breaking out of this cloud, as some people like to call it, but we call it the DVAN SmartLines sell cycle. Price is breaking out of that. The leading line breaking above 0, really showing the force within that green or positive short-term trend. That period or the next period, the long-term trend closes positive, which is also telling us to maybe expect a larger move because they're happening at the exact same time as the short-term indicators are changing. So that closes about 1834, give or take where you get in. You can place a limit price to try to get in at that point only, or you can go ahead and enter at market depending on kind of your strategy and what you prefer to do. But around that entry level would be where we would be getting the confirm to take that long signal. And from there, there's a few things we look at to get out of the trade as early as possible while still letting the profit run while we're experiencing force in that trend. So the main thing we look at are the cycles here. And in the case of an uptrend or a buy cycle, we would look at the bottom line. It's actually below the chart because this is a very forceful move. But as long as these two lines are expanding away from each other, this top line and this bottom line here, we would be okay with holding that because the force is still expanding, that the volume of that trend is still expanding up. As soon as this lower line starts converging back, and it's off the chart like I said, but that is actually occurring on this bar at 9:54, which is actually kind of a short-term high before you get a little bit of a pullback. That's where we would say we want to at least start trailing this tightly. This is starting to contract a little bit, and the forceful part of the uptrend should be over. So that's obviously a huge move. It was from a big reversal overnight. Not every move is going to be 20 points like that, but it's a really good representation of how we would look at entering a trade and where we would start tightening up our stop or even taking our trade. Ultimately, if you do trail a stop once you start experiencing that convergence of the smart lines, a good place to trail is at the top line, because once it gets back into the cycle, it starts, it does move up a little bit more, but this is a lot harder portion of the trend to hold through than just the straight up portion. This is where you start getting a lot of the whippiness and consolidation. So the next move is a short trade. So right after that huge rebound this morning, it kind of fell back about halfway again. And we started seeing indications that this was going to fall as early as 10:18 a.m. Eastern Time. But we wouldn't actually get the confirmed trade signal until 10:30. So at 10:30, we finally closed below the cycle. We're finally getting across. We've had the red histogram bar showing us a downtrend, but we finally get across the leading line, which is also showing us that the force is taking place. So rather than getting in at 10:18, experiencing some of that whip, we get it at 10:30, where we should identify a point where the market's going to really fall in that direction immediately. Once again, you can see as long as these lines are expanding, we're okay, but they actually stop expanding at this point, so that would be a much quicker trade from about 1846 to 1843, so that's only 3 points versus this 20-point trade. Once again, if you wanted to trail, once you saw these lines kind of converging, you could put your stop right at the bottom line in the case of a sell cycle, the top line in the case of a buy cycle, and then you ultimately wouldn't get out until a little bit lower. You'd capture a few more points. The last thing to mention is that when this trade was confirmed to the short side at 10:30, you can see that the long-term trend was not breaking. So that's really managing our expectations. Maybe not necessarily a 20-point move, but more of a trade that we want to watch closely and pick up as soon as we got some profit, or at least trail as soon as we got some profit to ensure that hopefully that helped. If you have any interest, please visit the TradeStation TradingApp Store, look for DVAN and indicators that you could check out, take a free trial of, and if so, we'll offer a free web conference to get you started looking at the indicators with some training. Hope it helped. Hope you have a good day and good trading.